Good morning, happy Sunday, and welcome to Retro Toy Princess. I am Allison Joy. It looks like I'm a little frozen, actually. There we go, better. Oh, thank you, StreamYard, for starting it off right where we want it to be, just a little frozen, which is a perfect time. As my stupid phone keeps trying to autofocus on this picture. Okay. Anyway, maybe if I put some color there, it'll chill the F out. There we go. All right. Anyway, with that aside, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
As you've ascertained, if you're watching, my guest today is Chris from Chris Plastic of Shiny Plastic People. And we're going to color some Total Justice today, but first we're going to say hello to the chat. Good morning, Derek Hoover, and oh, excellent. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff in the 1997 that went up this weekend, and that is the year that Star Wars overtook Batman as the main thing in the action figure toy aisle. At least as far as sort of Kenner is, I mean, pretty much everything that was the year it got big. I remember that's when Toys R Us it had its own aisle at Toys R Us. So it's a pretty cool year. And good morning, Thanos. Lovely to see you. Thank you. I have not caught Thanos's video this morning, but I recommend to everyone watching, go check out his channel, Thanos Copter. He is doing director's cuts, explaining what he was thinking and the artistic things that went into each of the pictures that he shares on Instagram. And I know some of you sometimes say things like, what goes on in his head? Well, this is how you go find it out. So
sounds dangerous.
Very dangerous. In a good way. In a very, very good way. Good morning, Brennan. Welcome. Good to see you. And your shirt is getting props, and it's appropriate that Electric Blue Superman is the logo on that shirt. So
yes, even though he didn't make Total Justice, he was in that JLA spin-off line we were talking about.
Yeah, he was. They did. Yeah, that's exactly. Like, that was sort of the missing link to them. So, yeah. And that's sort of, I guess, a good segue. So today we've got a couple different, I'm starting with this one because it has Oracle.
Right. And that's actually what I have, even though it's not. There it is. Ha ha. Okay.
Yeah, continue.
I was just going to say, I was sitting there going, I think that's Oracle. I hope that's Oracle. And then I downloaded the image today to print it, and it had Oracle in the file name. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. And then in case we finish, I know I rarely finish, but this one is mostly just people since there's not a lot of background for me to do. I might finish this one pretty quick. So we've got 2 backup pages. Just in case. And if we don't get to those, if it just ends up the whole time we're here, it's this page, don't worry, Chris will be back. And Chris will be coming on regularly so we can do some DC stuff. And since we're briefly talking DC stuff, I'll just throw it out there for everyone watching. August will be the 40th anniversary of the Supergirl movie. Technically, it was released in European markets, and we didn't get it until November here. But it was released in European markets in August of 1984. So I've got some Supergirl content. So there will be some Supergirl stuff happening in August. And I haven't asked Chris officially yet to come on for a day of streaming for some Supergirl stuff, but definitely that will be a thing that happens.
Oh, we have talked much in the past about the 40th anniversary of Supergirl.
Yeah, we've talked, but I haven't did the official, here's what's happening. So now we have.
There it is.
On stream for witnesses and stuff. So you can't later be like, Allison never said anything. See, it's on the internet for all time. Really quick, Chris, what are you coloring with?
Well, I have my Amazon pencils, and I do have some Prismacolor hanging out here too.
Excellent. It's never a bad idea to have multiples and blend different. I do that from time to time. I might do that today with steel, because he's got a lot of metallic effects, and Prismacolor metallics are kind of trash. They're my favorite pencil otherwise. And while I can create sort of silver metallic effects with grays and whatnot, sometimes you just want a nice metallic pencil. I might even break out some of the glitter pens. So we'll see. Yeah, like I've been watching a bunch of the Supergirl stuff because one of the things that I hope they'll be able to get done in time is where the heck were all the Supergirl toys in 1984? Which becomes way more relevant when you realize how much Supergirl toys Kenner included in their presentation to DC when they got the Superpowers line, the license to do Superpowers. There was a whole plan for like Supergirl fashion dolls. They had mock-ups using the Glamour Gals toy line, which I'm also working on some videos for coming months and years. The Kenner Glamour Gals toy line, they had adapted a few of those into like Supergirl and Lois Lane, and I think even Wonder Woman was done with the Glamour Gal. Those are 4 inches though, so I'm going to assume part of, they were just using what they had on hand to make those mock-ups. But there was going to be a whole fashion doll line for Supergirl, including Linda Danvers Fashions. And it just seems really odd that there weren't Supergirl toys in 1984 in any capacity to sort of cash in on that movie. I'm going to throw it out there that maybe part of why that movie didn't do as well is there weren't toys to help hook kids in. So,
I will say it. The movie, it ain't great, but I love it. I love that movie.
I adored it and it gave us Helen Slater, Billie Jean herself. So she, it's fun, because like I said, I've been doing some research for the upcoming stuff, and there have been a lot of interviews with her over the last few years, and like she's just a really cool person. Like it's really, to me, sort of one of the disadvantages of that movie not becoming hugely popular and successful is that it didn't necessarily translate into a bigger career for her. But she is in 2 of my favorite 80s movies. She's in Legend of Billie Jean and Ruthless People, so not too shabby. Because we all love Billie Jean.
This Kyle Rayner Green Lantern costume is so peak 90s. I know it's
weird,
but it's so
Is it accurate? I'm having a hard time remembering. I know the crab mask is kind of accurate.
Right. I mean, there's the extra armor bits on it in this picture just because of being
total justice. Total justice.
Darkseid's so tough. They need extra weapons. He's the Green Lantern. He can construct these things.
Yeah, right? Total justice. It sounds like a 90s like buddy cop show with like like where they got the actors who played Coy and Vance on the Dukes of Hazzard to come back and be like, total justice. They're cleaning up Georgia 1 case at a time. Total justice. Anyway. But it is very 90s, like there was extreme justice and total justice and ultra mega extreme justice, not really, but it's a lot of extreme sports and people really like, weren't there were extreme Doritos even, weren't there?
There were extreme Doritos, there were extreme Ghostbusters.
No, that was an extreme decade. Gen X, the last time we were relevant, we made everything extreme. Maybe that's why people have tried to forget us as a generation.
It's all right. I'm a millennial, and people are having a hard time remembering that we're in our 40s.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's funny. So, yeah, let's see what chat has to say really quick. Because I just see it going by. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Quest for Peace was pretty bad, Derek. I agree. Oh yeah, there are a lot. Like even Faye Dunaway is just like, and like inhaling. I mean, it's like everyone's doing their. All of the older actors anyway are doing full on Shatners. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. You know, the whole Flash, like every time they try to make his costume fancier, it's like, but spandex is really what runners would wear because, you know, you need less clothes when you go that fast. I mean, I do appreciate that even in the like sort of 60s and stuff, they had a line where he had to chemically treat his outfit so the friction wouldn't burn it off. So that was always good that they were sort of aware like of some of the sign. I mean, you know, Gardner Fox did a lot of that stuff and he was pretty well read. So there's a little bit more real science that made it into the Silver Age comics than we kind of remember or expect. It's just some of the science was not quite there. You know, like the Silver Age of comics started at sort of at the same time the space program. I mean, like in the 40s when they did all the, you know, like in the 40s they still didn't realize there was no atmosphere in space really. Like, so you'll go and read a bunch of Golden Age comics where people are in space and they can breathe because nobody quite understood. You know, I'm sure there were people in science divisions who already understood there was no atmosphere, but the general populace did not understand that, you know.
Right. I mean, there's a reason, Green Lantern went to being a space cop in the 60s. It was the thing.
Yep. Yep, science industry. But so yeah, I don't know, it's just so interesting how, like, you know, my grandfather worked in the space program on the military side, and you know, and he was silent generation. Cats, you guys need to calm the fuck down. Excuse the F-bomb, but they're chasing each other right under my feet. I just felt cat claws on my toe. So anyway, my grandfather worked like in the space program, you know, as when it was before it was NASA, and then after he just didn't spin off into NASA. He stayed in the military. So the military could steal all of his patents.
Of course.
Instead of NASA, you know, like it's the lesser of two. But you know, like at the end of his time here, we would spend time sitting because he was bedridden for most of his last decade, and we would sit and watch like the X-Files. And he worked at, you know, a military base in New Mexico for a while, and he and his partner developed some of the stuff that was used to travel into space. Well, for the moon buggy, anyhow. And so he spent a little time in New Mexico, and you know, they got ideas for some of the stuff that was used in the space program after his time in New Mexico. They had revolutionary ideas like, let's try this thing nobody's ever thought of using before after his time in New Mexico. So we would watch X-Files though, and he would talk about stuff like that, but he would also talk about just how much science changed like in the 50s, like how like all this new stuff started coming to light. And you know, it was really you know, like that's one of the disadvantages I guess of him. I mean, he was in his, I don't know, 60s 70s when he died, so like he got pretty far up there, but at the same time it would have been nice to get a few more years with him when I could better understand. You know, I wasn't even 30 when he passed, so way too young to fully grasp the full scope of the things he had seen in his life and time. So it would have been kind of cool. to get a few more years where he was past his angry, drunk phase of life and in his bedridden, let me be cool and talk about the stuff I've learned part of his life. So
sure.
And I just realized the placement of Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter is going to make John's head sort of blend in a little bit with the green action stuff. Oh well, that'll be fine. I'll just use chartreuse, which is a weird word to say. Okay, so I've got my references pulled up for steel, but not for Green Lantern, but that's fine. I will just move to the red.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually understand the physiology here, the physical shape of John Jones here. It's a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, this is obviously on one of Oracle's view monitors. Guys, holy cow. Yeah, don't. Don't need your sass this morning, you guys. Should have given them catnip this morning. Anyway, it's pleasant here, and we've got a bunch of the windows open, so that kind of works them up more. Zoom as they zoom by again. All right, let's see. New comments. Good morning, Brick. Nice to see you. Yeah, that was a really good read. It really captured the film as much as it can capture it for somebody who was not there. Yep, man boobs and pouches. It's all about that. Yep, it is. Agreed.
I mean, we could definitely use some more like leather jackets in this image.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could definitely use a little bit more. And of course, I just realized that when the cats ran by, they sort of knocked my camera. There we go. And really quick, I'm going to turn the ticker off. All right. And just in time, good day, Payne. Lovely to see you this morning. So yeah, but it's also sort of 90s art. I mean, this is very accurate to some of the comic art we were seeing at the time. So it's a sort of intermingling of sort of some of the Japanese anime styles and traditional 90s comics where everyone gets preposterous capes because of McFarlane.
Right. Well, this whole line was a response to McFarlane's Spawn line. You know, the big pre-posed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Which is probably why it didn't last as long as it could have, because people who were still into DC Comics weren't necessarily into the whole Todd McFarlane.
Well, I will tell you my biggest beef with the line, and it's silly, but I remember going like, oh, I hope they have a Robin, and I finally saw Robin in the plain black cape. Immediately, I'm like, this line is trash.
Right. I don't think I had picked up any of them until I got Wave 2 stuff. I picked up the Huntress and Black Lightning. I mean, 97, I was 100% Star Wars and building my girl figure shelf. And I still had all the superpowers displayed. So really, I was not even, I would pick up different Catwoman figures and any Batgirls. DC was actually almost as bad as McFarlane as far as Batgirl. We didn't get our first Kenner Batgirl until that Wind Sale Batgirl figure. Lots of Catwomen though throughout, sprinkled so that we were getting some ladies, but I don't think. And we got in 97 we got the animated Harley Quinn. Well, because she was still only animated at that point as well.
Right.
So Yeah, just so weird. You know, we got a couple Poison Ivies because of the movie, and a couple movie. I think we got a movie Batgirl before we got like a comics or animated style Batgirl. So,
well, animated Batgirl came in real late to the series.
Yeah, there's that.
Because she was introduced in like the final episodes, I think, of Batman the Animated Series.
Which, seeing what Bruce Timm later did with his Killing Joke adaptation, I'm kind of glad.
Well, he hooked him up in the DCAU too. Because if you go to Batman Beyond, you know that they have had a relationship.
Gross. People stop trying to make Batman and Batgirl a couple. She's like 15, 20 years younger than him, and he met her when she was a kid. She was 12 or 13. Stop making it up. And
let's not forget that she was dating Dick Grayson. So, like, you're peeving on your essentially foster child's girlfriend here, man.
Well, not only that, but the whole like Dick Grayson Barbara Gordon thing was always weird to me because she was. I mean, eventually they caught up. Soap opera. It's like soap opera aging, but originally, she was like 19 when he was 16. Well, it's not as big of a deal, I guess, once you're adults. But I never liked Dick. I know there are people who will probably cancel me right now for this, but I don't like Dick and Barbara together. For me, it's Dick and Coriander. Like, it's all Starfire forever. And
I ship Dick and Babs.
And I'm okay with that, I guess. I see why people do it, and it has been a thing it was always hinted at that he had a crush on her. And I think there are times where it was hinted that she was kind of crushing on him too. So it's not like it's out of canon, but I just never, so.
We could go nuts here and just stan Barbara and Ted Kord.
I liked that though. That was like whenever it looked like they were moving them in that direction in Birds of Prey, I was 100% into Ted Kord and Barbara because it made sense to me. He was, like he was sort of structured in DC post crisis to be sort of like a kinder, gentler Batman. Like he had the Batman like I am a $1 billion corporation and I build all this stuff. But he wasn't grim and gritty. He had like humor and he was a good guy. Like Bruce Wayne does like the right thing and he does debatable. Okay. Like we could debate sometimes his tactics, but like it's all in the name of justice and what's right. But he's not a good person.
Right.
Which is, part of why whenever the Gotham show was on, and young Bruce and young Selena she's like, said something. He's like, you're not a good person. You're not a nice person, but you're a good person. Which I like because I'm not really a nice person. But I'm a good person. But I think the opposite is true of Bruce Wayne, where he's kind of a nice person, but he's not a good person. He does the right thing, but he's not a good person. Like, like he just humps and dumps and ghost every woman. I mean, look at Vicky Vale. And so, anyway. Yeah, exactly. And I also think with Dick and Corey, it makes a big difference. Yeah, it's true. So, yeah, exactly. All the comics hot takes. Good morning, Alex. Lovely to see you. And we're talking DC Comics, so good time for you to be in the show up because Alex is also a comic book nerd like the rest of us. So, but yeah, so I don't, and I do think the Corey Dick thing depends on how hard you went for Teen Titans.
Right.
And I was way more Titan, like I didn't really buy Batman comics. I didn't really like Batman as a kid. Like my comic books like this is my comic book history, right? And it's partly because my dad worked at 7-Eleven through college, and he would bring home stuff for me to read. One, but also this is something that a lot of people don't know about how comics worked on the newsstand days. At the end of the month, if you had comics that didn't sell, you cut the covers off, you sent the covers back to your distributor, and then you just allegedly threw out the old comics. This is why a lot of used bookstores won't buy a coverless book, because this is what's supposed to happen also with like books. When you send them, the publisher, you buy books from the publisher, you send them out, you get them. Publisher doesn't want to have to spend all the shipping costs to get those books back. So sometimes you can get a credit by stripping it of the cover and sending it back. Anyway, so that's publishing history 101 for comic books. So my dad would come home with a lot of, the stuff that was supposed to get thrown out but didn't. And that was where a lot of my old comics came from. And not surprisingly for where we lived, there was a lot of Wonder Woman. There was a lot of, and then there wasn't, because also the Wonder Woman TV show hit big. A lot of Superman family with Supergirl, so much to the so that when my grandmother took me to see the Superman movie, I'm like, where's Supergirl? Who's this dude in her outfit? So why are they so woke with the Superman? It's supposed to be Supergirl. Anyway, cause just saying. Interesting. Martian Manhunter wasn't officially released until their JLA line either. Huh.
Yep. The only figure or character came out in Total Justice on this page is Green Lantern, and he was late.
Yep. Okay. So.
Anyway. I had him, and I had Parallax from the line.
Yeah, I had Black Lightning and Huntress because I only wanted the new characters. Anyway, so it was like Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Star Wars. He would just buy it because that was, Star Wars has always sort of been my main jam. And there were a couple issues of the Spider-Woman comic and a couple of Dazzlers, a few of those mixed in. He would buy me X-Men, and he would buy me Star Wars. So those always came with covers. And then they killed Phoenix, and I was done with all Marvel comics for like 8 to 10 years that weren't Star Wars or Indiana Jones. So some comics for me were just like, so there wasn't a lot of, I knew Batman from TV because that show would come on Saturdays in the afternoon on whatever channel it was that Fantasy Island and The Love Boat and Donnie and Marie came on. I watched a lot of Donnie and Marie as a kid. So don't cancel me. Donnie and Marie. We didn't know any better. So, but it was also just TV at that stage of the game. Batman, the episodes they reran for whatever were always the season with Batgirl. So I never knew Batman, and then the Filmation cartoon had Batgirl, and I watched the Filmation cartoon. So for me, it was always, Batman was only good because Batgirl was, and she was one of the few cool redheads back then. Otherwise, it was like Medusa from the Rescuers, and while Medusa certainly has her strong points, she's not really a good role model for young ginger children. So,
I was just thinking, Barbara Gordon has stayed more red than any redhead I've ever known. She keeps it bright and orange. She's fiery.
And Brennan, she did not. She was also in she was actually like the first big, look, we're doing this cool line. It's KB Toys only, and we've got Wonder Woman in scale. So So yeah, we didn't get Wonder Woman until the only lady we got in Total Justice was Huntress, which was still cool. Like I am not complaining. I had loved me some Helena Bertinelli before she got booty shorts and Hush.
I remember the first time I saw Huntress was in a Robin comic book, specifically the miniseries Robin 2, Cry of the Huntress.
Yeah, that's when they brought her back. I, of course, well, because I did in the 80s pick up Wonder Woman comics. Helena Wayne had her own backup in the Wonder Woman, so I knew her from that. And then I actually went and bought Huntress #1 in 1989 at my local comic store. And when they introduced Helena Bertinelli, which was a much darker, it was very dark and gritty. It was very good, but it also quickly got shifted to adult only. So then I had to sort of hand wave whenever they mentioned that to my mom. Like, by the way, you're aware that you're buying this adult comic for your kid. I was like, no, Mom, it's not like that. It's got some violent content in it.
Violence is fine. It's sexuality that's the problem.
And then my mom told them it's fine, just let her have like any comic she wants. So that was how I started reading Grant Morrison Doom Patrol. Because after she did that for Huntress, I was able to put on some adult stuff onto my list. That comic book dude never cared for that, but whatever. My mom gave me permission, sir. He still works at that store too. Like I think he owns it. I guess. I mean, I haven't been back to that part of the country in about 20 years now, but the last time I looked the store up, it still had he was still on the Facebook page. So it was interesting to see my old nemesis / dealer in charge of the store. Still angry that I got my mom to let me have adult comics from DC. I mean, it's not like they weren't really. I don't know. Some of the Grant Morrison stuff got pretty dicey, but
I mean, as a kid, I'd pick up like Batman comics and those kinds of things, but I remember really getting into like the event stuff. You know, specifically like the death and reign of Superman.
Oh gosh, yeah. See, that's a little bit after me. So I was really, 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 really into comics. Because it's, like I'd always picked them up. So I had a pretty decent scatter collection. You go spend the summer or whatever with your grandparents and you're halfway between, like it was an 8-hour drive from where we lived to one set of grandparents and 4 hours to the others. So you stop at the 7-Eleven and like, you're annoying your mom or whoever, whatever in the car. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Get the comic book. Shut up. So I had a pretty good newsstand, like loose issues situation. And, a lot of those stores were really bad about sending old stuff back. So I remember picking up like issue 290 with like some of Wonder Woman with like some Gene Colan art. And then on the way back home that same trip, we stopped at a different 7-Eleven to get gas. And they had like 288 was on the shelf before Roy Thomas and Gene Colan had come. So like it was all over the place. And then in 84, when Superpowers came out, I went hard into and it was right sort of as I was transitioning out of sort of, like toy. Like my parents were like, you're probably getting a little too old for toys now. You're like 10 going on 11. Just because your silent generation parents kicked you guys off of toys at 10 or 11 doesn't mean that's what you guys need to do. So I got a few more years out. But I did start going into comics, and so I started getting every issue of Wonder Woman, and it was right when Crisis on Infinite Earths and Who's Who started coming out. And Who's Who for me as a kid was perfect. It's like $1.25. But literally every page had a different character. So it was like, to me, it was like 31, no ads, 31 pages, So Who's Who for me was always like getting 31 comic books for $1.25.
Sweet.
Because, you know, it had their entire history and there was all of the different art and yeah, so that was sort of comics, but then right when I graduated high school, I sort of fell out for a little bit. And it was right when Perez left Wonder Woman and William Messner Loeb had her stuck in space for like a year and a half, 2 years. And it was just, and Giffen and DeMatteis had left Justice League and Dan Jurgens had turned it into like adventures. It was like the old Justice League, which was boring to me kind of.
Right. Where's the get rich quick schemes?
Yeah, like I like the Blah League and Teen Titans, you know, like George Perez had finally just fully left and Wolfman had them, you know, he did the Titans hunt where it was like everyone was getting killed and changed and I was just like, and then they killed Dove for Armageddon 2001 and they killed her and I was just like, I was really mad and I was like, why did you kill Dove? And it explained that somebody had spoiled that Captain Atom was Monarch.
Right.
So they had to change it at the last moment. And then they were like, well, Hawk and Dove is about to get canceled. We'll make Hawk Monarch. And he can kill Dove. And, you know, Hawk and Dove was building up as sort of this love story between the two of them. Slow burn over time, right? And then they end that love story at DC by having him kill her and go mad because he's killed her. Of the many preposterous things Jeff Johns undid as a comic book writer, when he went to elaborate lengths to bring back Dove and eventually, like the good Dove, and eventually help redeem Hank Carl, I forgive quite a bit of his nonsense in comics for all of that. Just not him giving Wonder Woman a dad, because guys can't relate to a woman character who doesn't have a dad.
Right. That's a miss. But I honestly think Jeff Johns really did some great things right before New 52. Like,
oh yeah.
It's unfortunate they put him in charge of Flashpoint, which I don't even think was his intended story.
Probably not. Well, at that point, they were just pretty... Well, Flashpoint also sort of... That was that weird time where, like, they were constantly always building to 2 or 3 different main stories. You know,
right.
Like, you've got Final Crisis happening, and... I don't... It was such a mess. And, like, continuity was... You know, like, hadn't really settled after Infinite Crisis.
Yeah, there was a crisis annually, which was too much.
Yeah.
But like one of my favorite things, like when he did Green Lantern, and it's silly, but they made this art decision that the blacks on the Green Lantern should be without highlight. It should just be black because it's the absence of color.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just really cool. And they found a way to bring Hal Jordan back, the Green Lantern Corps back, but not diminish Kyle Rayner, which I thought was great.
Yeah, no, it was cool that, like, I don't know, there were a lot of good, like, he did really good with Green Lantern. It just, at some point, like, you know, I'm not a fan of the, redesigned Star Sapphire up her butt outfit. Like, that was a little bit much.
I won't disagree with that.
I did not also like that he tied in, I mean, because Hawkman was a big enough mess, but the way he tied in Hawkman into Green Lantern and the Star Sapphires was just kind of, it's a little bit of a Jan. So there are a few, and that was toward the end of it. That was like Brightest Day, like, but you know, and Brightest Day did do a few good things. It did give us back a lot of cool characters. So there's that. But I just, at the same time, like, the Final Night, Final Crisis, Darkest, whatever, all of that. It was just this constant. At that point, like, my pull list, I was getting a lot of books And there was a stage where my pull list, I was spending $200-300 every week for comic books.
I kind of wonder if that's what caused so much of the decision to go with the New 52 was they were playing pretty loosey-goosey with some continuity, like really trying to push forward.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but what I would give to get like the Batman Reborn like era back.
Right. Yeah, I think what's interesting to me about New 52 is originally I hated the idea. And then I remembered how after Crisis, it was really, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was kind of exciting that there were new characters, that they were doing these, Wonder Woman was really good after the Perez era of it, after Crisis was really good. It's really, there are some missteps, i.e., she comes to Man's World after, which they changed to Patriarch's World, after Donna Troy has already been Wonder Girl for a few years. So that's part of where they started the massive screw up of the Donna Troy's origin remains to this day because they keep screwing her up again and again. New 52, we could completely reset it and fix it. No, let's make it complicated and stupid.
Well, because they're like, we're going to keep everyone you love, but we're going to condense the timeline. Like, how?
Right? Yeah, so it was kind of dumb. Like, anyway.
My poor boy Tim Drake got it rough in the New 52.
Oh, totally. Everyone that was a member of Young Justice got it really rough. Like, none of those characters escaped unscathed. Even Cassie Cassie Sandsmark is a perfect example. Her dad was Zeus. And then because they gave Wonder Woman, Jeff Johns was like, men can't relate to a woman who doesn't have a dad. Sure, Jan. They gave Wonder Woman that origin, but then they're like, well, we can't have Cassie be her actual sister, so she's her niece or something, because one of Zeus's other kids had sex with Cassie's mom, and it was just a lot of dumbness. Like, there was no, yeah.
Bart Allen wasn't ever actually Bart Allen.
Right, that was dumb.
It was future criminal Bartor or something.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was just dumb. Because there was no reason for that even. Like, he's literally from the future, people. But they're just like, we can't really have that storyline anymore where Flash goes to the future. It's like, yes, you can. You can always have that story.
But I vividly remember, and I'd have to go through all my back issues, the first preview for Flashpoint was the Flash family, specifically, Bart, Barry, and Wally opening their Flash rings and Reverse Flash costumes coming out.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that was a different story at some point.
Yeah, it felt really well. And I'm also, just while we're talking about Flashpoint, I don't like the fact that the Flash's origin was retconned, so that his whole reason for being is that his dad was falsely accused of murdering his mom.
Yeah, isn't it enough that he's a nice guy?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, the thing I always liked about Barry Allen, and I think that always made the character work, is that he wasn't a grim and gritty stuff ends up happening to him because of being the Flash, not because. But it was always what I always liked about him. All the Superman, Batman, even Wonder Woman to a degree, because she has to, she defies her family and the gods and her mother's wishes to come to the Patriarch's world to hook up with Steve Trevor. I always appreciated that Barry Allen was just a normal, nice guy. There was no, there are many issues in the Silver Age of him hanging out with his parents and nobody's dead and nobody's, he was always, to me, worked because he was an everyday man. He didn't have, he was a cop, but he wasn't a cop. He, worked in a lab. It always worked for me. He was such a good guy, and it just doesn't work when you make him angsty. I watched a lot of that CW Flash show, and it's just I just finally got old, all of the angst all of the time.
I enjoyed the Flash show. The problem I had with the CW shows is eventually they always had a team.
Right.
Like, Man in the Chair eventually gets superpowers.
But at least with the Flash, I will say though, at least with the Flash show, unlike Arrow, at least with Flash, everyone who started from the comics eventually, like they had Vibe and they had Killer Frost and
Right.
everybody in it who gets powers during the course of the show at least started, at least in the comics, with somebody who did have power. It wasn't it wasn't like we've created all these new characters and oh shit, we ruined Black Canary. Let's because we think there's more chemistry with Felicity. There was not. That's actually when I stopped watching Arrow, was when the whole dead Black Canary, alternate reality Black Canary, and then the Felicity stuff. Like, that's her boss. That's Firestorm's stepmom. Stop doing that, guys. That's weird. And for those who aren't super comic nerds, Felicity Raymond, well, that's not her name in the Arrow show, but in the comics, Felicity Raymond was borrowed from Firestorm, where she was the stepmom of Ronnie Raymond. And for a time, she worked for Power Girl and ran Power Girl Software Company back when Karen Starr had a life that was not getting a bunch of different origins and whatnot. So,
I mean, at least like she's Supergirl from another universe. Like that seems settled now for at least a time. So
it does, but because they keep doing that and they keep resetting their universe, they keep writing her out, and it's just like, I liked when she was Atlantean. I liked when she wasn't Superman's cousin. I liked that she was different. Yeah, I don't know. Like, that was one of the cool things I thought, but I think the problem with the Atlantean thing is there are too many people who didn't have a grasp on how to write her. And it's really simple. She doesn't need all these stupid magic powers. When Paul Cooperberg, who created her to begin with, in the 70s, when he retrofitted her into his other creation, Orion, he specifically made it so that she didn't have really any magic stuff. And the reason magic affected her was because of that. And then you get during the Dan Jurgens run on the Justice League books, all of a sudden in there you get people trying to experiment with her powers and give her magic and make her weird. And then at one point Claremont got a hold of her, and when he was at DC briefly, and fixed it so that she had she was weak if she was hit with wood. So she's super powerful and super capable, but if you hit her with a wood stick, she's going to crumble. And it was just so weird, like all the weird attempts to like, and I think it was just there are a lot of writers who could never get past the fact that she once upon a time before the crisis was Supergirl from Earth 2, and she has big boobs. So
wait, you mean she has a character beyond big boobs?
Yeah, right. Yeah, like that's all that they could focus. And if you read that 4-part miniseries by Paul Cooperberg from like 87 with Carrie Gamble art. Yes, I loved that miniseries. I collected every issue. But if you read that, like it's not necessarily a good miniseries, but it's a really good reset for the character of Karen Starr. Like, it really sets her up post-crisis with her own identity, her own background. He gives her a supporting cast. Starware, her software company, is clearly defined for the most part. It's all very 80s, of course, but at the same time, like, it worked. And like, she didn't need a solo series, but that 4 issues plus the little precursor to it that he wrote in this Secret Origins issue, like with those things, if people had just stuck to that, and they actually sort of, when she joined Justice League Europe, they kind of did. And like, this is sort of technically a woman in refrigerators moment, but it's one I actually sort of approve of. There's a storyline where a big crossover between Justice League America and Justice League Europe, where they fight the Gray Man, and she's severely wounded And they basically, Superman has to come in and operate on her, and she's like got multiple organs, and it's really quick though. But afterwards, her powers are reduced, so she's basically back to Earth to Superman powers. She can leap tall buildings in a single bound. She's super, like she doesn't have. They removed a bunch of the sort of overpowering that had happened to her over time, as they scaled her up to be more Supergirl. And I liked that. I liked when they stripped her down. I liked when they got her back to those Earth 2 Superman. She did have some, like limitations, and she wasn't all powerful. And I think Power Girl works in that capacity, I think. And I don't know, it's just weird that people want to write Power Girl as a very strong woman, but like they don't know how to write her as a strong woman. So we just keep getting, it's just weirdness. Like it's strange to me. Like, because often what happens is, like we don't know how to write a strong woman. Well, with Power Girl, they know how to write a strong woman. They're just not very good at it.
Sure.
And they want her to be super strong all the time, but they don't know how to write her. And I maybe the takeaway is just that there are a lot of male comic writers who don't know how to write women but when they depower, some writers do. That's not, of course, across the board, but. And I've been ignoring chat, and I apologize, guys. We're having fun. Yeah, Jeff Johns went from my sort of, yeah, exactly. It's weird. New 52, and the sad thing to me about New 52, and I digress so we didn't get there, is I was excited at one point because I remembered how good it got right after Crisis when there was all these new ideas, all these new titles. I bought all 52 issues that first month. And there was some good, there was some bad, there was some, there were things that did not make it to month 2, but I went deep on things like Sword of Sorcery, which had Amethyst Princess of Gemworld brought back. I didn't like the retrofit. I did like that they brought Christy Marks back to comics. But I tried all of the New 52 stuff, and for the most part, it was very bleh.
I mean, I read the New 52, The Ray, just hoping to see what was going on there,
Yeah. So let's see. And Derek also hated that. So now it's Aries' daughter. Okay, so that's dumb.
I think she's back to being Zeus's daughter, though.
Who even knows anymore? I don't, because I haven't read anything. I'm actually probably 2 years behind on Wonder Woman even at this point. I've got a bunch of, the last collection I picked up is the one with the big anniversary issue, and I haven't finished that trade. I haven't gotten through that stack of trades yet. I have some time off coming in June. I'm gonna catch, and then I have a bunch of the Wolfman Perez collections.
Now, of course, I'm basing this off the Wonder Comics Young Justice because I haven't read anything in forever.
Yeah, right. I almost picked those up, and then I was just like, nah, I'm good.
I didn't mind them just because they kind of got some of the characters back to form. But then they decided to make Tim Drake's superhero identity his last name.
Lots of good. Yeah, that was dumb too. I read about that, and I was like, I can't. Yeah. I think that's part of why CW sort of died at the end, though, because it just got to the point where it was done. And it was hard. And then Alex has a good point. Yeah, Ragman was cool. And that was sort of, for me, one of the cool things about some of those CW shows was when I liked the Legends of, I watched all of the Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, Legends of Tomorrow was great.
It was great. It helped that they pretty much, for the most part, made up characters and just gave them DC names. So it wasn't as annoying to me when stuff that never happened in comics happened, or they did something awful to a character from comics. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Amanda Connor and Jimmy, the one they did that, and then Jad Winnick took it over, and then New 52 killed it.
Oh,
But
Judd
even when
Winnick.
Jad Winnick took it over and did his Jad Winnick thing that he does, it was okay. Like I didn't hate it. Yeah, right. Wait. Here's the question of the day, though. Zeus's daughter, Ares' daughter, and who is the father? All this and bring out the olives today. I'm worried. Exactly. Hello, Cobb. Good to see you. All right, we're caught up on chat. So, yeah, I don't know. It makes me sad that I don't. I read, like even Star Wars comics, I'm behind on. And I've picked up a few of the digital versions of the X-Men '97 stuff, and I've enjoyed that. So I think I might just be too old for new comics. Is my maybe what's happening, and it's okay to let the kids have them, and just read my old stuff and enjoy that. And I might be able to be more excited about finishing up all of my Wonder Woman online, all of my Wonder Woman videos that are about half written.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm an old man moment the other day when someone on a McFarlane Discord was like, you know what McFarlane needs to do is put out figures of every new 52 look. It'll sell like hotcakes. I'm like, what?
Right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, kids. Anyway. We had those, sir, and nobody bought them, and now they probably go for too much because it was DC Direct.
Well, and they would get so cute. I remember like reading the Superboy series, and they would drop hints right away at the beginning, like he's just so angry. One of his DNA donors must have been a real monster, and you're like, oh, that right. Lex Luthor, and they're like, haha, it's not Lex Luthor.
Right. It's this character nobody cares about.
It's the son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent from an alternate reality where he's evil, but his DNA was unstable, so we cloned him and put more Superman in, so he's more stable, but now he's still evil.
Yeah, like that was the stuff. Because a lot of it just felt like, let's make a twist just to be twisty. It's like when M. Night Shyamalan movies became unwatchable for me, was like when it was about how do we make a twist at the end of this that makes no sense, but will make everyone go, oh my God, what? And like, but then you can't really rewatch that. Like The Village is for me, like where it ended with M. Night Shyamalan. I would say it was Signs, but I don't know what happened in Signs still to this day. And I've watched it like 4 times. And I'm like, today is the day I'll figure it out. This time I haven't had any martinis. And I watched The Sign sober, and I'm like, I need martinis to get through this. And but I still don't know what happens in Signs other than Mark Wahlberg is in it. And I don't watch Mark Wahlberg movies anymore because he commits hate crimes. So anyway, M. Night Shyamalan. So it got, like The Village, like the twist at the end is like, oh my God. But then when I rewatched The Village, there's no way to enjoy The Village after that twist, because then it's like the rest of it just seems ridiculous. And like whereas with The Sixth Sense, that twist makes that movie richer. Like when you rewatch The Sixth Sense after you know how it ends, it's so much better because you can now see all the things, and it makes it more, for me anyway, the Bruce Willis character becomes more tragic when you rewatch it once you know the twist. Like that's a twist that makes that movie better upon rewatch. And there's some of his twists where it's just like once you know it, the movie doesn't work anymore and it's not any good. And I feel like a lot of sort of those weird twists in the New 52 were like that. It's like, let's shock them. This isn't your daddy or your granddaddy's DC Comics. And it's like, that's why we read DC Comics. DC Comics fans want things to pretty much be a status quo for all. I should be able to pick up Wonder Woman, and it's pretty much the same as it was 20 years ago. Like, yeah, there's some differences to make it more modern for the kids. And I think for me, that's just, you know, I think DC is a nostalgia brand and always has been, even when they do sort of quote unquote new stories. Even in the 80s, it's a nostalgia brand. You know, like, yeah, Wolfman and Perez revitalized the Titans, and there was all this sort of cool stuff happening. And, you know, a lot of new characters created. But even Booster Gold, who's, in my opinion, one of the best 80s characters DC has, he was still built on nostalgia. He's sort of built on the Legion of Superheroes era and all of that. Like, DC
I love Booster Gold.
I love, especially, you know, and I shaded Dan Jurgens earlier over his Justice League run, but he did some great work with Booster Gold. His Superman stuff in the 90s was really good. He did some great Superman comics. I enjoyed his, not a lot of people do, but I enjoyed his little 20-issue run on Teen Titans when they just, and to me that was a good way to reboot the Teen Titans. It was just all new characters, all new team, all new concept. Didn't eliminate the, you know, like the old Titans weren't suddenly all disappeared or didn't exist. It was like, here's just a new concept. Like, I liked that. But Booster Gold was just so good. And like George Perez, his Wonder Woman, so like the Hawk and Dove series that we got back when Liefeld with the great inker could give us feet. There's just some good stuff that happened post-crisis. And I think for me that made New 52 even sadder, was that I did clip in. I did sort of find, like, get in tune with how excited I was, like in 86, 87, when all these new comics started coming out post-crisis on Infinite Earths, and how there was some really cool stuff that happened. And then New 52 didn't deliver on any of that. It just felt like, let's make it edgier, let's make it darker, and screw up every piece of continuity you've ever cared about.
It felt like creators trying to like, oh, remember when the 90s were like this?
Right.
But instead of pouches, we just add lines. Let's have more lines.
Yeah, and I don't, yeah. Like, I didn't like Superman's, like, we can just burn that Supergirl costume. She's 16, people. She's 16. Stop putting her in. I mean, I'm sure the 70s booty shorts that she wore that I enjoyed with hot pants. I'm sure people have the same reaction, but let's remember Supergirl was 18 when they put her in those shorts.
Well, and hot pants were something you would have seen a teenage girl wearing, much to the disapproval of her parents.
Right. She was very with it.
But, you know, I don't remember seeing teenage girls wandering around in vagina huggers.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it just, yeah, and people also forget when Supergirl died in Crisis, she was 23 to 25. Like, she had gotten to grown up. She'd been in college a couple of times. She'd been an actress on a soap opera at that point. That's right, people. Supergirl was once an actress on a soap opera. She lived in New Athens, Florida for a while, where she was a counselor at a New Athens college, which is a special school for special students. That one didn't last very long. Soap opera one lasted a little bit longer, but that was also during the Dollar Comics phase of Superman family.
I will say I liked the New 52 Superman costume. I mean, yes, it was busy with the lines, but I liked the high collar. I liked it kind of being kind of a regal suit kind of
I
thing.
would have liked it more if he had the underwear. Like, Superman has to have those underwear on. I don't care how dated it looks or stupid or whatever people want to call it. Like, for me, like, the underwear is part of the charm of Superman, because it's kind of ridiculous. So it should be ridiculous and not, you know, like, Superman should wear the underwear because he's kind of a dad. Like, Superman makes dad jokes. I mean, not the gross ones, but like the silly ones. Like, he's a Boy Scout grown up. So,
well, the New 52, he was edgy. He fought the man. in the Grant Morrison run.
And that was Grant Morrison trying to get him back to like the golden age where he like would go up against corruption and stuff, but it just didn't. So Grant Morrison, I love his work, but I did not love his Superman. The Superman in jeans was too much. Again, it was like, let's try too hard. Let's defy expectations. I much rather liked. I did like his alternate dimension Black Superman. Like that for me was like what I wish they would have just let Morrison run with and write that and given someone else Superman stuff.
Oh, when it was Barack Obama was Superman?
Well, it wasn't Barack Obama. It was like
Calvin. Well, his name was Calvin Ellis.
Yeah, right. That one. I mean, like, yeah, it was inspired by or whatever, but I liked that whole idea. That could have worked.
Well, I know I said that kind of derisively, but I liked it. I did. I liked the idea.
Oh, and for those asking, I'm about to use olive green. I'm bringing out the olives for a little bit of the shading on Kyle's crab mask. So yeah, I liked that. Grant Morrison works best when he's getting to deconstruct and do new stuff, and I don't feel like his Superman in jeans fighting the man was really like a deconstruction of it. It was
again, Batman Reborn was him flipping the Batman formula upside down. You had Dick Grayson, the fun-loving action-adventure Batman, dealing with his dark, brooding Robin.
Yeah, like that worked, though. Like that really worked for me. I loved the whole Batman Inc. storyline. Like Morrison did some great Batman work. And that was, to me, one of the mini books that was just ruined by the New 52 because it's like, well, it's selling so much and it's Grant Morrison, and of course Grant Morrison's contract is Grant Morrison's contract. But it just really felt like, you know, like a lot of it was really hard for me to enjoy the rest of Batman Inc. in the New 52 because like I could tell reading it like, oh, half of this isn't going to actually be continuity once Grant Morrison's done.
Right. It felt like they wanted to put an end on that series, and they were letting him finish it, and that was that.
And it was fine if it would have been sold, but they tried to sell it like it was part of the New 52, and it's just like you can't.
Right. Like, and the costumes were inconsistent with the New 52 too. There
was some great Kathy Kane stuff happening, the original Batwoman. Like, I really liked some of the stuff he was trying to do there, but it falls flat at the same time when you've got Kate Kane. And Kate Kane is, again, another that Batwoman comic I also felt like really got just sort of ruined and did not have the launch and landing it should have because of getting crammed into the New 52. It just, like I get the idea, like, oh, we want to get some new books to bring new people in, but it would be really easy to be like, whatever happened to an imprint line? Like, look, guys, there's this, and here's the New 52 stuff happening over here, and here's 12 books for you to go read that's in this new universe. Like, I think the whole thing, like, readers won't do that. It's like, readers have to do that because half of our back issues no longer, happen in continuity. We can handle alternate realities.
Well, or they could have, I don't know, brought back the Who's Who.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Like, we could have just like been like, hey, let us explain to you what the hell is going on.
My favorite, and this is to Alex's comment, he's like, they need to bring back Supergirl's original memories and age. I hate that they made her young again. Peter David at the end of his Supergirl story, like, because he had that epic Earth Angel, like, that's a really good run overall. It's not necessarily a great like long-term Supergirl. It's a really good Linda Danvers story. But it works for at the time because Supergirl was Matrix and all that. So it was a really cool. He did some cool stuff over there. Doesn't necessarily always translate, but I liked his little ending where like she gets sent through time and ends up in the Silver Age. I feel like the secret to sort of making Supergirl work again is you have to bring back the one that got killed in Crisis. That's the Supergirl that they keep trying to recapture every time they bring back a Supergirl. You know, and that's a great death. Like that was the first time a comic book, other than Dark Phoenix, made me cry like as a kid. Like it was just such a well-written death, but I think killing a character like Supergirl, for instance, is very short term. Like for me, when the Titans killed off Terra, that really worked because that was the ending they had been working toward, and that she was envisioned as sort of dying at the end of all of that. And that sort of for me works. Like, but I just have feelings about, and this is one of the reasons I stopped watching Young and the Restless. Was they kept killing all these sort of legacy characters when actors would change or whatever, and I just don't think you should.
People can move away. It's fine.
People, and it's like comic books. It's so easy to just stop using that character, and
I mean, look at Jack Knight. I don't know if you read Starman.
Oh my god, that was such a good series.
Right. But he got to just move away. He didn't die. He just said, you know what? I'm trying to raise a family. It's time to hang up the superhero.
Well, and to this day, people won't use him out of reverence to James Robinson because, like...
Right. And when James Robinson came back to do the Convergence Starman, it featured the Shade, not Jack Knight.
Right? Yeah. So, there's like, it works. Like, there are ways to do it, and... you can just retire characters. They don't, and just reference them. There's times where, like, people move away, people leave, people don't. Not every crisis needs every hero. Like,
yeah, I think Starman, while great, doesn't get the love that it sometimes deserves when people talk about the great comics of the 90s.
Well, it's weird because it did at the time, and there was like this 10-year period, and then it's like at some point, like I read all of the I didn't read them all when it was coming out, just because it started sort of in my in-between taking time off of comics throughout the 90s. But then when I came back right as John Byrne took over Wonder Woman.
Sure.
But that's also when Morrison relaunched JLA. That's when Jurgens did his Teen Titans. And Jack Knight was a big deal. So that's when I started picking up issues here and there. And it was really good. But I didn't read all of them. I didn't buy it every month. I would buy like an arc. Like if I picked it up, issue 1 of a new story arc, and I would read those, and I really enjoyed them. But it was just like I had Star Wars toys to buy, so there wasn't as much money for comics. And then he was in the JSA when that launched in like 1999ish, I think, 2000.
Which was John's, just so we're clear.
But it started out as like Johns and Robinson and a bunch of people. And that is sort of where Johns was good. Like that's a pretty good run.
Right.
That was sort of mangled by Final Crisis.
But just we're right. Johns became something ridiculous, but I think of his run on Booster Gold coming out of
that was a really good series.
Well, and what a fun idea to be like, hey, you know how you're a laughingstock? That's actually your secret identity.
Yeah. That was a pretty good one. I liked that one. There was so much good meta stuff happening in that one. I have Should drag it out. At one point, I was writing a lot of fan fiction, and I created. I called it Team Titans after sort of the train wreck that was the '90s Teen Titans team, and it had Duella Dent as the main character, Joker. Joker's daughter, who keeps getting screwed over in all of these crossovers.
She's always the first to die, right?
Yeah, right. But it was the original Silver Age one from Titans, and she basically gets sort of constricted to be basic. It's almost like the Booster Gold, what they ended up doing with Booster. I felt a little like, how did he read my stuff? This wasn't online anywhere. But I had a whole arc, and one of the teammates that she enlists is the original Aqua Girl, not Tula, who died in Crisis, but the one before that, the blonde Aqua Girl who goes away. Pre-Mira even. And she gets killed in it, and then right after that, it's a different one of the other pre-Tula Aqua Girls joins the team. And she gets killed, and then they basically rescue Tula right before her death in Crisis, and then she gets killed. But I wrote this whole, planned out and wrote parts of and sketched some of it, this whole 4-issue arc called Aqua Girl Must Die. And it was sort of this meta commentary on how the fate, like for the universe to remain in balance, Aqua Girl must always die. Sort of commentary on women and freezers and whatnot. But
right, which unfortunately comes from Kyle Rayner there. That's
Kyle Rayner and his girlfriend in the freezer, in the fridge.
She designed this costume. His girlfriend in continuity was the one who designed this costume we're looking at here.
Her name was Alex, right?
Yeah, and she was a fashion designer.
Major Force.
Frigider, yep.
Yeah, literally fridged her. Thank you, Gail Simone, for that lovely article. But and that ultimately is how Gail Simone ended up writing at DC Comics, because somebody found that and put her in comics, and she slowly, after her stint at Marvel, where she helped revitalize a little character named Deadpool.
You know what? I'm gonna say I just switched to this other image, and there is not near as much armor. This looks more fun.
Which one? Oh, the one with the 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm starting still now, so I will be there eventually. I hope. But yeah. All right, let's quickly check in with chat. Okay, here we go. There was a blonde Aqua Girl. The very first Aqua Girl was like, we'll call her a Paris Hilton type, and she very much wanted to be Aqua Girl, and she was chasing also Ramona Fradon art. So Silver Age Aquaman. Before Mira, before actually Atlantis was in stories a lot. And it turns out she's like half Atlantean, so she has powers, but they only last for a few days and then she loses them. Or like she has some sort of disease that to get it fixed removes her Atlantean power. So she's only like 1 issue. It was them testing the concept. And so anyway. And that was kind of, I was like, oh, she would die if she stayed Aqua Girl. Okay, sure. So that was kind of what, it was right around the time I found that old issue in a stack. So, oh gosh, we've missed a lot of stuff.
I'm sure we have.
But that's okay, because it's mostly them chatting with each other about comics, and I love that. Yep. Yes, Ron Mars. God, that was Ron Mars. Yeah, the Teen Titans did have the de-aged Ray Palmer, because he got de-aged in 0 hour.
Yep, that was
Dan Jurgens.
The first time I ran into de-aged Ray Palmer was in a Electric Blue Superman issue, so it made sense.
Well, and then they hastily at the end of that Teen Titans run, he gets re-aged. because I
But he
guess
had a vest. He was so cool.
well, it was fun. I thought it worked as a short term thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, and obviously, that they're always at some point going to re-age him. But it was just kind of like it worked within the context of that, where it's like he is super sort of, he's a college professor, he's a scientist, he's been a superhero for decades, and suddenly he's a pimply faced teenage boy again.
Oh no, girls.
Right? And he's still trying to get back with his ex-wife, Jean. Oh, Jean Loring.
The less said, the better.
Yeah, right. Let's pretend. What's worse than fridging a woman, having her fridge another woman, and then turn evil?
Evil.
Evil. Because we don't know what to do with Jean Loring for 30 fucking years. Sorry for the F. That's 2 now. So
Again, just ignore her. Let's just move on.
Yeah, that's true.
It's better to ignore sometimes.
Nobody needs to talk about her total eclipso of the heart.
Oh.
Anyway, let's not get copyright struck by whatever. Oh yeah, once yeah, I love every Gail Simone Birds of Prey run has always been good. Like she just gets the concept, she gets, and that was one that sort of lost a lot of momentum for me at New 52 because like she had just hit such this cool stride. It was like Black Canary, Huntress, and Lady Blackhawk. Like that was such a good, like they had such good chemistry together. Like so few of it was about boys. Like there were romances, but it always felt like it was handled in a cool way. So
I mean, that's another thing they did in New 52 that I'm so mixed on is the de-paralyzation of Oracle.
I go back and forth with that. Like if they were doing it as year 1 stories, like it works to give us some Batgirl in Batgirl stories with Barbara. I don't, and I go back and forth. The reason I go back and forth with it and ultimately sort of made peace with it is one, she should have technically never been in the chair.
Right.
That was like like Grant Alan Moore being sort of gross and getting away with it. But it was also them canonizing a story that wasn't meant to be canon because it was really popular and sold really well. So that was sort of my argument, like, well, I'm okay with it to a degree. What I did like that Gail Simone did do was once she didn't have it just didn't go away. She had actually been in a chair and she just had something, she was able, like it was repairable.
Right.
But she still had sort of all of the emotional baggage. And then she was still there were other characters who were not fortunate that Gail Simone touched upon a time or two. So that it's like, it didn't go away. Like there was still context. So it wasn't like, oh, this is weird and uncomfortable. She's got her legs back. That never happened. Like Gail Simone made sure that it still happened. It was still part of her, and there was still recovery happening from it.
But to me, it was the cost of Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, there was that too. Like that was unfortunate. Well, again, it was sort of like that whole generation of young heroes we lost for New 52. Like we lost Stephanie Brown, we lost Tim Drake. Like technically was still around, but why?
Well, he was such a weird character. Like the new origin for Tim Drake was that like he wanted to be a psychic so bad that he proved to Batman he could do it and put his family in witness protection and had to change his name.
Right. Yeah, it was weird. And just to make it make sense, basically. And,
yeah.
But Cassie, even, Bart, need we even talk about Connell again? No. Just all of them so badly, and they again, Jeff Johns when he was good was good. Like he did some good work with them in that Teen Titans series. Like,
oh, that Teen Titans book was great. Even though, like, there's the weird 2-issue fill-in by Gail Simone that is somehow just a turd.
Well, I think we all need to discuss who the artist was with her on that one.
Right, but there was some weird writing in there too.
Well, there was because basically they're like, hey, we need you to do this 2-issue fill-in with Hawk and Dove.
Right, with
an artist who this was before he had talked smack about her, obviously, but
yeah, but it was Liefeld, yeah.
Yeah, it was Liefeld. Because Liefeld helped revitalize them in the 80s, so obvious. It's like, no, it wasn't. Liefeld did the art on that miniseries, but that was total the Kessel's writing that revitalized Hawk and Dove.
And the costumes were just way off model.
The costumes were
panel
really
to panel.
Well, yeah, and that was partly that weird. They did a weird redesign of them when they brought them back. Like, they gave like the Wonder Woman sort of style of bodices, and like that's not.
Well, I was just thinking of like Robin in those issues. Like some pages he'd have a tunic when Tim never had a tunic.
Right. There were also quite a few instances of Mel Moose Knuckle, it felt like, in that
right
arc. Like,
I just remember them being like, well, we're gonna go bowling. Good bowling, Kid Flash. Like, well,
right?
They'd hang out, but they didn't do it in costume.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like, I often, and Gail Simone is usually, unless somebody attacks her specifically, she does not dish tea or anything. But I do wonder if some of the weirdness is, because the way DC usually works is the writer writes the script, sends it to the artist draws it. We all know there are various stories about Liefeld out there as far as all of that goes. You can Google and find them out. And I'm wondering if he just did some stuff and like the weirdness of like the dialogue and the writing is them trying to get it back as close to the original as they could, because some of it, was really odd. And it's not.
I have that run in floppies. I was all about that.
Yeah, no, I have every Teen Titan single issue from The Brave and the Bold that Donna Troy is in, that they introduced her in through like the first 12 issues of the New 50. And when I say every, I mean like Teen Titans Spotlight, Teen Titans, like I don't have one of the when Jeff Johns, when they relaunched the Teen Titans, there was one of the alt covers. I don't have one of the alternate color covers, but I have every actual issue.
Yeah, I think I have some of the earlies as alt covers just because I had to go back and buy them because I missed the initial launch.
And like in the 60s and 70s, like how The Brave and the Bold was Batman and teaming up. I have all of the Teen Titans and Brave and the Bold. Like, I'm literally the only old school Teen Titans issue I'm missing is like that very first Brave and the Bold before they were called Teen Titans. And there was a comic store that went out of business around here, and they had everything marked down to like 50% off. And between that and people in like 2008 and 2009 that were having to sell their comic collections due to the financial crisis, I managed to pick up quite a bit. So it's kind of like a carpetbagger, but for comic collections.
Sure.
But I need to go through those because I got a bunch of Batman at that point. Like, I don't need all of that Batman stuff. Do you like? I should, because I also got a couple lots of Green Lantern in there. I'll go through it and like throw up because I just need to get rid of some of it. And it's not like there's a market for any of this old stuff. So
right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it got a little over the top. Well, yeah, exactly. Ray Romano. God, that was I hate Ray Romano though. Everybody loves Raymond, not me.
I like that Ray Romano impersonations have hit Schwarzenegger now, though, where it's just like, meh, I'm Ray, meh.
Oh my gosh, right? I just never liked that. Like, something about the whole premise of it, it's like, it just wasn't a good show. Like, and people loved it and they loved him, and I just did not. Like, his whole family was horrible to his wife. And it's just like, that was the humor. Like, his family being trashed to his mom, I mean, to his wife, the mother of his kids. And like, that's the joke. This is why kids go no contact, people. And all right, there we go. I'll put a little bit of some glitter pen on steel. Sort of help him out a little bit, fancy him up. It's also partly because this armor on him is such a train wreck that he needs a little help. And some of it is because he never actually got released with this armor. I don't actually know what it's supposed to look like.
This is, I think, this is supposed to be the armor immediately after the return of Superman.
But it's got some extra lock-on stuff on it.
Yeah. So. He didn't have an S symbol of his own.
Yeah, so it's like it's clipped on over his normal armor because these gauntlets are not normal gauntlets, and like the wrist thing here is weird, and then these brackets around his waist. So, and it looks like there's some sort of missiles on his side over here. So I don't know. So I'm just all the stuff that doesn't make sense. I'm putting silver glitter pin onto it. I had it out because before we did this morning, I was working on a She-Ra short where I'm like, I'm just going to do her entire sword as silver glitter pin. It came out pretty good. So that'll air in a couple weeks. Everyone should look for that one. It's a fun one. Anyway. So, oh wait, and then Still's eyes are also white. So I'll grab the paint pen again in a second. I need to do his cape. And pretty much he's also in a red cape like Martian Manhunter. So there we go. Let me use the white paint pen on some of his armor too. So it'll work out. Nice. It's coming out pretty good though. So sort of like well, for the people watching this, I have some pages from a different Total Justice book that I sent Chris that aren't quite as good, but at some point we'll probably do those. It'll be fun to do that Wonder Woman page with the Exorcist head on it.
I had to take a step back on that one. It
was very, well. Not only is there that part of it, but like the face art, like the face is bad. Like it's very,
well, yeah,
and not like like the faces on here are very sort of they're comic book. Like
like Kyle looks like he stepped right off a Fisher Price box.
Yeah, and then this is it reminds me of Wozniak, like his art for the Martian Manhunter. Like it's got that very much look like Chris Wozniak used to draw, like in his faces, and even sort of the posture of it. And then we've got a very anime-esque Oracle down here. But I mean, for me, like these pages, the first couple of ones I sent you really work, and like the ones from this other book that have Wonder Woman and Aquaman in them, not as much. So, but we'll still end up at some point doing those. We'll do some more Batgirl too. It's just definitely, I know probably the next time you'll hear it'll be Supergirl Celebration time. So.
Right, and I do have that book as well.
I know you do, and I do as well. I've got actually 2 of those because I have one to leave intact, and I've got one like what is it?
Now, I will say I did
Rick-
already color one page in there for myself. You know,
You're fine.
Is that
If it ends up being one of the ones we pick, then it's fine because I've got two. Thrift books online had two of them, like for $6 each. So I grabbed two, and I also did this with that Batgirl book we worked on last time, where I actually took one of them and I snapped the spine and ripped it apart, and I've just been scanning the pages because everybody knows I like the fancy paper. And those books don't necessarily have the best paper in them. So, especially when I want to start doing like alcohol markers and little things like with the Karen Dash stuff, it's not great. And I have a Wonder Woman one that I've also ripped up and scanned. So, because that's how I roll.
those books are really cool, though.
Those are nice, and I have a couple others. I've got some scans from another one that Make Mine Marvel on Instagram. He sent me some scans from another DC that's really good that I looked into. That has there's one that's just all lady superheroes and villain, and there's some good Catwoman stuff in there.
That's awesome.
And he sent me some great art from it because he owns them. It's kind of what's cool is as I, because I'm getting subscribers and more people are watching as I sort of blow up. There are a lot of people who have been like sending art and stuff. I've had a few people send me books. They're like, I found this for like 50 cents at a yard sale. Do you want? And I'm like, I lost a bid on eBay like 2 weeks ago where it ended up going for $50. And they're like, heads up, the art's really bad. And it's like, yeah, it is. That's why I dipped out at like $30. Am I gonna say, and there's some of these don't have a huge like there are 5 or 6 of us who are probably always the ones buying all these old coloring books. And it's probably just this all out bidding each other. I know at least one of the other guys that I often go up against in these things also sort of scans the books for archival reasons. And I just sort of wish there was a way for us to all sort of work together so that none of us overspend and then just share images. So if any of you guys are the ones that keep outbidding me on some of these old books are watching us, find me on Instagram and let's talk. Let's get a little network going so that we can, because a big part of it for me is sort of making an archive. There's some of the art, as we saw with the other Total Justice book, not so great. But some of it's really good. Like I've got a great Wonder Woman coloring book from the 70s, which is the first coloring book I ever remember having as a child. And I had it 3 times. Has a whole story in it. And at some point I've got that one all scanned and cleaned up. And at some point I'll start working on that one. And that one obviously, because it has a whole story, will end up with a whole storybook video. And it's got comic dialogue, so I'll need to get, I guess, actors and stuff so that we can do it right. But it's sort of one of my goals long term is to get a bunch of these that have stories, turn them into videos so that the actual stories and the art can be appreciated. And so, especially with like some of these properties, like for DC and stuff, if you're a DC fan and there's a Wonder Woman story you haven't read or a Total Justice story that you haven't read, like we're all sort of completist nerds about that stuff. So it'll be fun once I get, like next couple of months, I'm going to start hitting a point where a lot of the books I've been working on in this first year will be done so that I can start going bigger with all of this. So it's going to be great. I know when it's time to do that and I need a Kyle Rainier voice, I'll ask Ralph. And then
God!
No, I'm kidding. I'm setting that up so that I can drop that one. No. And definitely you're going to be involved once I start adding my comic content because You are sort of one of the biggest comic nerds I know in toy tubing. So, I mean, there are a lot of us. Don't get me wrong. I'm not leaving any of the nerds out, but you're one of the biggest I know. And since so much of the DC stuff is what you do on your channel, definitely.
I'm actually trying to pivot to almost being just DC exclusive.
Nice.
There's still stuff I just like though that I can't not look at.
I like there's I've heard discussions of people who do like say a lot of G.I. Joe or whatever, are Masters of the Universe, and that's sort of the cornerstone of what their content is. And sort of the question like, what do you do at the end? When those lines aren't sort of what they are, and that's kind of why I've resisted doing. When I first was going to do a channel, it was almost all just Motu stuff, and then I was kind of like, well, that's very limiting, and I don't know how long Motu will last this time, and it's also not my interest just Motu, obviously. So I like Star Wars too. Star Wars is forever-ish. So
I mean, I love pro wrestling, and I'd like to cover a lot of pro wrestling, but at the same time, I'm not British, which seems to be the secret to pro wrestling YouTube.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I bet Ken at Toy Connections has some good feedback on that, because he's done a couple wrestling things.
Yeah, Ken was it was cool meeting Ken because it was somebody I could talk to about that stuff.
Well, I bet in general Ken is fun in person too.
Oh, he is. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, Miss Hoover heading out about 10 minutes ago, but that's cool. Have a good day. It's not like we won't talk and chats and stuff. See, Alex is going to start doing comic book. You already sort of have, Alex. You have been doing those shorts with like what you picked up, and I've enjoyed those, especially because I'm not buying a lot of comics these days. So it's kind of cool seeing what all is out there.
I don't know. Every time there's a new comics store in town, it A, doesn't last long, and B, I somehow always end up in a feud with them.
Oh no!
Like the good nerd I am, I'll make some ridiculous stand.
How dare you put Spider-Man No Way Home as if it? No, wait, that's not it. What is the another good? What is the one where like
One More Day?
One More Day, that thing. How dare you put that next to this Spider-Man? Ugh.
Well, like the last shop that was kind of here for a while, like my big beef with them was their back issues. They wouldn't price. So if you brought them up, they would just look on eBay to see what it was selling for.
Oh, jeez.
And I had the Black Series TIE Fighter. So I'm like, I need to sell this thing. It takes too much room.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I'll sell it to the comic store. They sell toys. And I'm like, would you like this? They're like, we don't buy loose toys. I'm like, you don't sell toys then.
right. Oh my goodness.
It's a TIE Fighter. You're a comic shop. You need this.
Right? Well, yeah, no. Oh my goodness. It is good to have feuds with a comic shop, though. It's how you know that the comic shop will eventually die, and you will still be there to lament that there are no comic shops next to you.
Right.
But it's okay as long as it's not that dude still running it. So
there was one where the guy, I can't remember the deal, like somehow he was supposed to be independently wealthy, but it turned out it all backfired on him. I don't know.
it usually does, Elon Musk.
So like, yeah, I just moved my pull list to him from a guy who just didn't have a shop but had a dealer license, so he could get you whatever you wanted. So he felt bad. He's like, all right, you can go through all my unorganized boxes and whatever you find is $1 an issue.
That's really cool.
Well, I walked away with like first appearance Archangel, first appearance Deadpool. Just like
nothing wrong there.
And just the whole time he's like, ugh, ugh, and I'm like, don't worry, I'm not a complete jerk. If I brought it up, you have two of them, and I grabbed the worst copy.
Spoiler alert, he did not.
No, I did. I legitimately did.
Well, see, we had that sort of issue in the 80s. There were comic books, of course, hit really big for a couple of years there, right? And so all of a sudden there were a lot of, ironically, it was often the video store. All of a sudden there would be like comics, and it was usually because it was a local mom and pop, at least in my part of the South. It was usually because it was like a mom and pop shop. And their their son, who was no longer a teenager, but, had been for many years, was wanting to start his own business, so they would get comic books. And they would have like copies of like the Overstreet Price Guide, and they would be like, oh, this must be okay, so yeah. And it's like, sir, this comic you were, even at like 10 or 11, I'm like, sir, that's for a book in mint condition. This is very fine at most. I am not paying you $15 in 1988, 89 money for this raggedy old copy of New Teen Titans where Who Killed Trident that like has the staple role. Like, sir, no. You're not, no. Like, this is the one that says 50 cents at the end at best. And they would just try to argue with me, and it's like, okay, great, I don't need that comic. And then I would go in later, and the kid, it'd be like when the kid would oversleep or whatever, and it was his dad, and his dad knew shit, and I would get the best prices at that point. I'd be like, oh, no, this isn't, you're looking at the wrong thing. It's this one over here. Yeah, this one that says 50 cents. So that is how I got the entire run of the Judas contract at a time where those issues were going for $3 to $5 a piece for $1.
But I'm sure Dad also understood the difference between mint and like fine, and
it didn't matter because he didn't know the difference between Teen Titans, the 70s one, where all of the issues in the 40 range were not worth anything at the time. Yeah. And New Teen Titans. He just saw Teen Titans. So
Teen Titans was Teen Titans.
Teen Titans was Teen Titans to Dad. And if his son had not argued with me over and tried to overcharge me for a 50-cent copy of a beat up book, but that was karma. And I liked it anytime his dad was there. They eventually had to close because he wasn't making enough money, because there were two reasons he wasn't making enough money. One, I was probably the only customer. And two, I was the only customer, and I knew to go in when his dad was there. So he was not maximizing his profit. But that's what happens when you try to rip me off. And don't listen to reason. Your dad comes in on the day that you overslept because you stayed out too late partying with the dudes, which, i.e., he ate too much Taco Bell and blew out his sphincter. And so that was the dude who I think hit on me, and I was like 11, and he was like not. He was old enough that his dad was trying to give him a business in his store, so I feel no shame.
Oh, sounds like he might be a state senator over here or something with that kind of backstory.
In Louisiana as well, like,
Yeah.
I was 11, so possibly they would have considered me an old spinster at that age. You're not married yet, what? And then his dad intervenes. Well, if she's not married, she's not good enough for her own family. She's not good enough for us. Anyway, I don't disparage everyone in my home state. That's a joke. I'm from.
I do. I'm ready to burn this place down, but it's so cheap to live here that, one, I can't escape it.
It is cheap to live where you are. Well, you know this because we were chatting that night when I was looking at houses in your part of the woods. And we found that one house that I'm pretty convinced has the ghost of a depression baby that died there. Chopped in the wall. And those red wall. I mean, like if you got walls that red, you're just gonna have some sort of ghost.
Right.
Just math. It's just math, my friends. All right, let's see. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that was the worst part about visiting San Francisco, was getting to see a part of the world that more aligned with where I'd want to be.
I love anytime I go to the Bay Area. I was very bummed that illness kept me from making my way down there that weekend. Well, especially because I had been looking forward to getting out of the Pacific Northwest for a few days and like hanging out with toy people. And anyway, I love the Bay. What I love most about the Bay Area, and this is where you can tell I'm a little demented, but I love that you can get like really good food at like sort of these really sort of trendy type hipster places. And then you can go 2 streets over and there's like a McDonald's on Haight-Ashbury. You can go to these amazing sort of like galleries and see amazing artwork. And then a couple blocks away is like a Zodiac Killer kill site. Like the Bay Area just has it all. Like literally if you go to the Bay Area and can't find something to entertain yourself with, like you're probably boring or too pretentious.
Right.
It's like if you can't find sort of snotty things to do, there are a lot of really low rent things you can go do for fun. So, like one of my last trips, one of my my most fun nights was I went and found an old diner down in the on Mission Street, right?
Yeah.
It's just really old, fancy 50. It was overpriced for what it looked like. Oh my God, so good though. And their cheesecake was to die for. Do I know the name of it? No. Could I find it again if it's still there? Yes. And then I left and I took a taxi. No, I'm sorry, an Uber. Take taxi. Especially for this. I was not going to take a taxi for this, but where Zodiac Killer killed the taxi driver, I took an Uber to that neighborhood and then went and sort of looked around like this is where it happened and this is where they think he walked. And then I just out of the blue was like, let me go back to the scene of the crime and follow my gut. And I did. And I ended up in front of this big fancy house. I'm like, this is where Zodiac went. I can feel it. I'm in the Bay Area. I'm psychic. We'd also passed down Haight-Ashbury to get there. So I might have, picked up the finger quote fumes, right?
The contact high.
Contact high, right? And I don't do anything like that anymore because it messes with other meds. And so I'm super sensitive to even the Mary Jane. Because it messes with other medications I have to take. And anyway though, and then later I went and looked online and like one of the people that they think is a Zodiac Killer used to live in that house. And I did not know it before that night. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how stupid internet conspiracy theories happen. It was really hard not to post that just to like, yeah. So, oh, let's see. Hello, Adam. Lovely to see you today. If you're having a good day thus far.
Well, I liked it at one point we went into a comic shop with Brick, and he's shilling for Animal Warriors like he does. Of
course he is.
And like I'm like, oh, I want to pick up the Superboy trade that's right here because I'm at a date. Let's see what's going on. And the lady was too busy like quilting to help anybody. So
oh my God.
I'm like, oh, San Francisco, keep on being you.
Yeah, Alex said it is now worth $2. What's sad is when I bought the first appearance of Bumblebee, it was worth $4. And I spent $4 in like 1989 money. So, yeah. All right, really quickly. I just finished mine, and we're to a point where I shouldn't even start. So I'm quickly gonna throw mine up in solo layout.
Ooh.
So there we go. And I'll post this on Instagram between olive posts. I'll put this up so you can all enjoy this completed piece that is not olives. But I did use some olive green right in here for the TJ. So there is that. Oh, StreamYard, and you're taking over my autofocus. All right, really quick. And now let's put Chris up on Solo Layout so we can see all the work Chris did, which looks really good as well. See, I like that your glow on your Green Lantern looks better than my glow.
Yeah,
I think it
this
looks
is where
better
I'm
to
at.
my eye. Oh my gosh, you're almost done. You color so much faster than I do.
Well,
You
I
should have
don't have near the depth that you do for sure.
Yeah, I've been told I'm pretty shallow a couple of times recently.
Oh.
I think shallow bitch. I don't know. Whatever. Like that guy matters. I mean, you should have seen his shoes. Like, sir, don't come at me when you're in Crocs. And I say that like I wear a lot of Crocs because you know what? They're comfortable. Do I like admitting to it on the internet? No, but I just did. But anyway.
I refuse.
You refuse to wear Crocs?
I do.
Aw, they're so comfortable though.
I am wearing Allbirds right now, so I'm really not better.
Well, I mean, somebody one time said, well, if you're not a nurse or a doctor, you shouldn't wear Crocs. And it's like, so what? You have to have crippling like student loan debt to be authorized to wear Crocs? It's not like I'm wearing like ugly one. Like I've got like it's like the wannabe clog Crocs. So it's not like the big what people think of when they're Crocs. They're just Crocs that look like, you know, mulebacks or whatever. So I've got some Mary Jane Crocs, so I'll wear it off fancy. Tony. He's just popping in as we wrap up. Good to see you, Tony. I need to ping you shortly, Tony, so that we can plan your next visit. Hey, Crusty Old Pro, lovely to see you. There's always the like button you can hit, so thank you for popping in and hitting that like button. Of course you did, Tony, because Tony is a DC person as well. So Tony's got all the DC stuff. All right, so I'm quickly just going to put some pencils up really quick. And while I do that, Chris, where can the people find you?
Well, I will tell you, they can find me over at Shiny Plastic People. We just dropped a video the other day where I unboxed the latest collector edition wave. And in about an hour, I will have another video drop where I unbox the latest and greatest vehicles from Superpowers.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
So DC. So
DC,
all you
yeah.
People go find Chris. Your channel should be linked in the description of this. I'm pretty sure I tagged you in it. If not, it will be shortly. If not, and you're looking for Chris's channel and you have not found him, you can go to my community tab. Words are hard. If you scroll back through all the way to March, was it the 2nd?
Yes, May 2nd.
May 2nd. Yeah, May 2nd, not March. May 2nd. There's a link to Chris's amazing review of Amberu from Star Wars Power of the Force 2. So you can find that, watch that, like that, interact with that so the YouTube algorithm likes it. And then go watch the Superpowers content and subscribe. Like, we need to, are you almost to 500 or am I misremembering?
I am at like 430 something now.
I thought it was something like that. It was like 400 and then I looked the other day and you were up to like 420, I think. But that's been almost a week and you've been dropping some good stuff lately, so.
Yeah, the secret is I've gotten some stuff before other people, so that always does well.
That helps. So anyway, go like and subscribe. Watch Chris's stuff. Let's get him to 500 because you're so close and he makes good stuff. He's one of the fun places on the internet for ToyTube. So, oh, sorry, Tony. I'm just popping you back up. And for me, tomorrow, I've got a Masters of the Universe. I'm still working on that poster book. So there's a page dropping for that. And then next Friday, I've got a color and show. I don't remember what it is. It's, I think, Barbie maybe. And I know people love Barbie that watch my stuff. They like my Barbie shorts. They don't always go for the longer form, but it's a cool page. And if it's not Barbie, it's Strawberry Shortcake, or it is, I don't know. It's one of those. I could look it up, but just go check out Color and Chill on Friday. And then next weekend is Kenner Toy Booklet 1998A, because I released 2 of them in 1998. And yeah, so that's it. And I'm still doing a short a day every day through July 15th. So check out my shorts. For those of you who keep wondering how you can get into my shorts, literally every day I put them on YouTube. So
there you go.
That's as close as most of you will ever get, and that's a good thing. Go watch them. All right, and with that, we'll be wrapping up for the day. I want to thank everyone who has popped in and chatted and watched and hung out with us and listened to the extreme comic book nerdery that happened. And I want to thank Chris. And Chris will be back, so yeah. And now I'm going to end the stream, and we get that uncomfortable, how long will it take for the stream to end? So I'm just going to start saying something so that it cuts me off mid-sentence.
That works best.
Yeah. So thank you for watching Retro Toy Princess. I'm Allison Troy, and we are out. But are we? Are we really?
It's hard to say. I mean, it says live, but we might not be.